Some days are more eventful. Others, living protected with insurance you can depend on changes your life for the better. We insure the people and things you care about. Not Agency. We'll help you find the right coverage so when life happens, you have the right insurance protection for your family and business. When life happens, live protected. Non-agency for all your insurance needs.
Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on Tuesday, December the 29th, and we're marching towards the end of 2015. Bill Wickersham is with us. One of my pet topics here, talking about UFOs. Good to have you here, Bill Wickersham.
Thank you, sir.
It's always interesting to have you here. UFOs have been of interest to me ever since I was a little boy, and I'd look up in the sky and I'd see something moving across there. I remember as a kid, we lived out in the country, growing up with my mom and dad, about 30 miles from St. Louis, and then every once in a while they would have those big spotlights, shining up in the sky. Right. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
I do.
And I'd look at that and I'd say, "Daddy, is that a UFO?" And he'd say, "Well, if it wasn't for the beam that we saw coming down, we could say that was a UFO." But I remember I was just fascinated with that subject ever since I was a young boy.
Well, it's a fascinating subject.
It is, because nobody really has definitive answers. Some people feel that they do.
Well, before we get into this, I just wanted to say that I've had a couple of requests as to how our information in our shows can be seen online. Mm-hmm. And I can just tell folks, if you just simply Google Paul Pepper Bill Wickersham, you'll get the bulk.
Oh yeah, they'll come up on YouTube.
They'll come up on YouTube.
You can watch.
That's right.
You can watch these segments. So if you want to find out about what we've talked about with UFOs, you can Google it and you can see all of them there.
But you talk about people who are interested in the topic. My topic today is John Podesta, Hillary Clinton, and UFO politics.
John Podesta, Hillary Clinton, and UFO politics.
John Podesta, as most folks know, I think, was the top civilian person in the government as chief of staff for President Bill Clinton. Mm-hmm. He was Barack Obama's special advisor and transition team person from the Bush administration to the Obama administration.
So what does John Podesta have to do with UFOs?
Well, I'll tell you here in just a minute. But thirdly, because this is key, he is chair, or will be probably chair, of Hillary's presidential campaign. He has had a long-term interest in UFOs, as has Hillary, and Podesta has gone on record on at least 4 occasions with very vigorous statements in support of UFO disclosure. He did it in...
John Podesta feels that the U.S. government should be more forthcoming about UFO information.
Yes, in fact, I believe I have...
A quote?
A quote here that's interesting. And by the way, this can be Googled. It's on YouTube. So if you Google John Podesta UFOs YouTube, it's John Podesta UFO YouTubes. Here's what he says. Quote, "I think it's time to open the books on the questions that have remained in the dark on the question of UFOs. It's time to find out what the truth really is out there. We ought to do it because it's right. We ought to do it because the American people, quite frankly, can handle it, and we ought to do it because it's a law."
So John Podesta, when did he make this statement?
This statement was in 2007 at a press conference at the National Press Club.
Okay, so if you want to see this, you can Google it, John Podesta UFOs, and you can look at the statement that he made.
That's right. And then later what's happened, Maureen Dowd is a well-known New York Times reporter. When John Podesta left the Obama administration, he tweeted to her his 10 big disappointments of the year 2014. At the top of the list, the last that he listed, but made it clear it was the top issue, was his failure to get disclosure of UFOs.
Do you think there will ever be government disclosure of UFOs?
Well,
they closed the Operation Blue Book.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course the people who knew the facts on Blue Book opened it up. The head of Blue Book told me personally in a small group that they cheated. That they fudged on about 20% of the sightings. So that closing Blue Book was just a way to try to get it off their back, but they haven't been able to do it. And when you say, will it ever occur? I don't know if I can't imagine that Hillary Clinton, you remember what happened to Dennis Kucinich?
I didn't remember, but you told me.
When he was running for president.
He was on Meet the Press.
No, it was on the debates, the presidential debates. Tim Russert asked him about his UFO sighting, and before he could even get a word out of his mouth, the giggle factor started. Now, this historically has been political suicide. If you were the head of the Democratic Party right now, would you say, what is Podesta doing? Did he do this without Hillary's approval? She knows he's big on, and by the way, she has spent time herself on researching this with what was called the Rockefeller Initiative. And I called my friend Scott Jones this week to be sure I knew what I was talking about. Scott's a former naval intelligence officer and was special assistant to Senator Claiborne Pell of Rhode Island. He provided a good bit, let's put it that way, of the research materials that Lawrence Rockefeller, the philanthropist, showed to Hillary. And in fact, here's a picture right there of Hillary and...
Okay, if you want to see this, you can go to kbia.org, click on Radio Fringe and watch the vodcast. Here's a picture of a very young Hillary Clinton. This was
1995.
1995. Well, it wasn't that long ago.
She was with Lawrence Rockefeller, who had given my friend Scott Jones $1 million to travel worldwide to get the information from China, Russia, Latin America, etc. Then Lawrence Rockefeller sponsored a seminar at his ranch in the Grand Teton National Park, or near the park, and spelled out all the details that Scott had done and also the work of medical doctor.
Well, you know what I find interesting is that many of the European governments are a lot more open to UFO information than we are here.
As a matter of fact, Podesta wrote the foreword to a book by Leslie Kean in which the French Cometa report is cited over and over and over.
Yeah. Well, Bill, we're just about out of time, but if you want more information on this, there is a wealth of information that you can find on the internet.
Virtually any question you have about UFOs, just ask it. And
you may not always get the...
Well,
now, I got to tell you, now I've done that. Some of the stuff is pretty outlandish that you will see on the web.
When Paul Hellyer, the former defense minister of Canada, and John Mack at Harvard, and Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, are on board, it at least deserves attention.
It does. And I've watched the Edgar Mitchell interview several times.
Yeah.
And it's pretty interesting. We're out of time for today. Tomorrow, Joan Stack, State Historical Society. We're back on Earth. If there's something you'd like to hear or see, drop me an email, pepperp@missouri.edu. Bye-bye.